Listen, Black Power family, welcome to another sa.neter TV House of Consciousness production. We are here with the lovely Miss Shan in the building, and family, this is going to be a real special treat for y'all. We are here with not a native, but
an American Indian, misclassified.
Oh man, say that one more time. So try to talk up so they can pick you up too.
Sure. Yes, I come from American Indians that were misclassified in American history.
Now, you know, through your attire, the way I'm looking at you right now, you look like a Native American Indian. She got the feather in her hair, her eyes. I mean, wow, you can see it right there, brother.
Yes, so my name is Shan. I teach along with my partner, Top Cats. We do a lot of American Indian history. We also like to help people with finding their story here in the Americas, whether it's North, Central, or South America, or the Caribbean. I'm also a business owner. I own a holistic business that deals with helping out people with any kind of health issues. And I'm a mother and I'm a wife, you know, at the end of the day. So that's what I do for my people. And that's my journey and that's my mission. Beautiful.
So, Sister, I have a few questions here that I would like to ask you.
Yes.
Hopefully you could bring some clarity of this whole situation here, why you believe that you are who you are. Okay. And the first question I have for you is, what is the importance of genealogy?
Well, genealogy is important because I know there's a lot of people that want to push DNA testing. I understand the science that people are, believing in, and it has to be believed in. But for genealogy, what you want to do is you want to trace yourself and you want to call your ancestors' names. I have been lucky enough, and I know many other Black Americans have been lucky enough to be able to trace their family through history. I've known people who have found land patents, they have found deeds, they have found war records, all types of things. I know for my great-grandmother, who is an American Indian misclassified, and rest her soul because she just passed away at 98, she was a veteran's wife. So finding out those benefits that you may come from veterans in this time period, you're not going to find that through DNA. You can find that through records. You can know where their graves are. You can pay respects to them. You're not dealing with mysteries, the gray area. So with genealogy, you do want to make sure that you are connecting. I know that a lot of people who build altars, shrines, and all these different things. That's really beautiful, but you got to know who you're calling on, and some people have been fortunate to find pictures of their ancestors, find the stories of them, letters. If there were slaves, you can find the slave records, the slave census. I think it's a beautiful spiritual journey. It's very emotional, and I wouldn't tell anyone to disturb from it by taking another easy way out.
Beautiful. So let me ask you, what do you assume? What do you think that is better, DNA testing or genealogy?
Well,
because I've been listening to a lot of the scholars, a lot of the teachers, and we tend to move towards DNA testing. Is one of the ways that you could really find out who you are, who are your ancestors, where you come from. Right. So I'm gonna ask you again, what do you think is more important for us? Genealogy or DNA testing?
Well, I think that for the Black American, we're in a very sensitive part of history where we have a lot of people telling us who we are, what we are, and where we're from. To drown out the lies, I'm going to say genealogy, right? Because I can tell you my fourth great-grandmother. My DNA test is not going to say my great-grandmother's name. It can maybe find a cousin, if that's, like I said, if that's the science you believe in. For me, once again, and for a lot of people who have found success in this, you have to know how to tell your story. I can't tell Jabari's story. I can't tell sa.neter's story. And sa.neter, I have heard that you do have Caribbean ancestry as well, similar to myself. But we have to be able to be honest about what our journey is. If Jabari's honest about his journey, I'm honest about my journey, we can tell the American history story, period. We've gone through colonization and we're still going through colonization. Let's not act like this thing is over with. Okay, we're still going through something. So like I said, for me, once again, genealogy is always going to be the key. Whether you're called a Negro, African American, whether you're called mulatto or colored, At the end of the day, those people have origins. If they were originated from Africa, get their names, know their names. If they're originated from America or Europe, know their names. Let's not just know the geographical locations, all right? People travel. We were not just people that stayed in one era. We traveled. But know who your people are.
One of the things that I notice about those who call themselves Indians, Hebrew Israelites, Moors, etc., those who are of the Abrahamic faith and stuff like that, don't want to deal with DNA. Why do you think that is? Like, do you think it's some type of fear that they're going to be told that they are not who they assume they were?
Yeah. I think that's a valid concern. I do believe that's a part of it. I think also a part of it is our people never really trusted the medical system, period. So then to send your spit off, your DNA off, someone to tell you some ethnicity percentages, I don't think that a lot of people are satisfied in that side of it. And I think the other side of it is that people just genuinely want to connect with real people. They want to be able to see my migration pattern. Where did my people come from? Can I trace that back? Can I know who these people are? Are they still here today? And they're right here on this continent. You know, so that's my story. But like I said, it's a little bit of everything. But at the end of the day, you are who you are, and people should respect that.
We call ourselves African American. How do you suppose we became African American? How did we become African American?
Well, it's a lot of theories on that as well. I believe that the African terminology is, unfortunately, it's used sometimes in a negative way throughout history. And it's not saying that those are negative people. It's just that even calling the continent Africa, I mean, who called the continent Africa? You know, that was not the indigenous name of those people on that particular landmass. So I do believe that there's something a little more sinister behind that. And then to bring it over to our continent, so you come across the Atlantic Ocean to our continent, and you label all dark-skinned people African American. I don't think that's valid. You know, and I do believe that it's washing out the stories of the indigenous people that are dark-skinned. I do believe there's something sinister about wanting to take their land by convincing them that they're from somewhere else. If for anyone that's not honest about what we're dealing with, how we're still in colonization, and how there's people like, I'm very close friends with a lot of Guarani people from Honduras, and how they're dark-skinned indigenous peoples as well. And guess what? They're also being pushed around, scattered throughout Central America, South America, the Caribbean. And it's because their lands was taken in St. Vincent, and they were told they were just African people. So this is a repeated trend throughout the Americas where dark-skinned people are pushed to the side, told they're African, and now they have no indigenous birthright claims to the land that they've always been on.
Let's move forward for a minute. I want to talk about reparations. Talk to us about reparations. Are you for reparations?
I'm definitely for reparations, definitely.
How important is reparations for us?
I think it's one of the solutions. It's not the end-all, be-all, but I do think it's a solution for those that were harmed by people in this country. Some people that are from the Caribbean were also sent to the Americas as slaves. That's a part of history that no one talks about as well. Some American Indians were shipped from here to the Caribbean, South America, etc., as slaves as well. So a lot of people were raided for their lands and stuff. So I do think it's important that we do highlight that and how we can push that forward to reparations. But I don't think that the way how certain groups are going about reparations in an honest way. And I think that's why the United States government has been kind of pushing us to the side about our stories, because we're not being honest. We're taking one broad brush and we're saying we all went under that brush, and then when you go to the government's like, try again. Come back and try again. Tell me your real story. So I think that once we narrow it down who actually was done wrong, because you had people that were of color that were slave owners. You had people that was of color that were colonizers, that were colonists, that were conquistadors. You have to know which one are you in that story. At one point, you can't say that the planet was predominantly brown and black people, and then when we get to American colonization, now all of a sudden everybody's just white. Okay, that's not going to work. So you do have to know who you are in the story, so that way when you are going for reparations, you know for a fact, this is what happened, this is what we're taking, and this is what the United States owes me. Should I just start? What should I start with? Because I wanted to talk.
You want me to ask you the questions over? That way you can go into all of that again and then add on or whatever.
Because okay, so as Indigenous peoples of the Americas, what I do understand is that there are plenty of people that have come to our homeland and they have intermingled, mixed in, whether it was voluntary, involuntarily. And right now where we are in history is that we are able to start telling our stories again, right? Especially because a lot of us were either acquainted, our family members, grandmas, etc., raised us to be Indigenous and to not be ashamed of who we are as well. But to also welcome all other parts of people that come from different parts of different diasporas. So I often get the question about how did we get to the point of being black African American in this country? And this is going to come a lot around the time of the Reconstruction era. And we can't forget there were Indian slaves. A lot of people think that slavery in America is only synonymous with Africans. No, there were plenty of Indian slaves. You can look at the start of the Pequot Wars and the King Philip's War. These people were taken as slaves. Different counties. There used to be articles that actually would come out that would count down the last Indian of each county, especially here in the New England region. Why is that? Because either two things were happening. Either they were being physically killed or they were being removed and then reclassified to either white or black, right? So this reclassification deals with the dwindling of numbers. It's not that the tribal people are gone, it's just that they're in a different class right now. So you would have tribes like, let's say like the Puspatuck tribe that I have family that's connected to. The Puspatuck tribe only has about 200 odd members now, right? That's not saying they don't have more descendants, but that's just who's in the tribe today that falls underneath being American Indian. Even though there will be others that fall under a different classification like black or African American. And as time goes on, as we mix, we also lose a lot of our cultural customs and traditions. We also start to take in a lot of cultural traditions from a lot of immigrants that have came to the New York City region, right? So I briefly also, like I said, I brought up a lot of the Central American plight as well. I'm personally close with a lot of Indigenous people from Central America that quite look like us, right? And the problem that they're having is they can't assimilate in society. They are deemed as being more savage. They are deemed to be more uncivilized, right? So when you look at these countries in South and Central America, you're always going to see the lighter complected ones, but you're never going to see the Indigenous people that are in the shadows, in the villages, and they're not able to get that bank teller job. They can't work at the airport. They can't work at a restaurant. That's where the predominant tourist population will come from. So I just feel like for me and my message, as I said, I advocate for the black Americans, and when I say Americans, I am talking about North, Central, and South America and the Caribbean that were misclassified to mulatto, to color, to Negro, to African American, to black. A lot of our brothers and sisters from the Caribbean and even from the Central and South Americas, when they come to America, they have to classify themselves as either black or white. Now, in their countries, these classifications don't fit sometimes, right? But when they come here now, they become black. In their countries, they're just Dominican, right? They understand that there may be different avenues they got to become a Dominican, but they're just a Dominican. But in America, they become black. And I remember growing up in New York City, that was a joke. Oh, the Dominicans don't want to be black. Well, the reality is, what is black? What is white? Right? But classifications, right? What I do, just like the brother Jabari, he said he wants people to embrace their African heritage. I want people to not be afraid of their indigenous heritage either. I want people to understand that you are living on Indian land, right? And you should not steer yourself away from it. You should not feel like you see the Indian as just a savage, uncivilized, teepee dwelling people.
But see, the problem that we have is when you only want to identify with Indians,
right?
You don't want to include the African part. And that's the argument. That's why you see a lot of us tend to have these discussions and debates. So let me ask you, why do you feel and you get so passionate to let people know, no, I don't have no African?
No, it's not that. No. I think I get passionate because I know I come from people that know they're not those other people that came here. And I get passionate because I see the erasure that occurred, especially here in New York City. The Black Americans of New York City, our culture has been kind of washed out or mixed in or blended with a lot of immigrants that have came in. There's nothing wrong with that. I have a lot of immigrants in my family. But the authentic root of what New York is washed out, right? Pizza, that's an Italian thing, right? You're not eating, you don't know if you're eating American indigenous foods. So when I hear like people like my aunts, my grandmas, and not just my grandmas, I have all types of men and women in my family who know they're Indians. But they're Indian at home, but in the public, they have to be African American. That hurts me a lot because I know they're just as passionate about their lineage, right? But I understand that they have mixed in with a lot of other people, and to blend in with these people, they will take on that classification too. And they know that their kids will take on that classification too. And guess what? A lot of times, because our people were enslaved, right? We also feel that we have the same plight as the African, as the Caribbean, and anybody else that came here. Sometimes you don't see yourself as different, especially in New York. What they used to say, the boat just took different stops, right? And we just all brothers and sisters, right? Well, that's just the mentality in New York. You know, we have the mentality of accepting all people. I noticed that in the South, it's a little different because they may have not experienced a lot of immigration yet. But in the North, you know, it's like we become one big happy family. But in that becomes a washout that happens. Because now when you do speak out and say, hey, but I'm an Indian. You are African, you are that, you are this, and we mix, but I'm an Indian. The Indian is told to shut up. Right here on their homelands. I don't think that's cool. I don't think that people like my family, who are the foundation of the United States, because we know that a lot of it started right here in New York, right? People who were the foundation of what we see today as one of the greatest nations on the planet, they're pushed to aside and they're told this is a white man's land, right? We don't even get a chance to tell the world what we contributed, what we did, how we were able to help a lot of the Southerners that came to the North, how we helped them transition, how we got something as great as a Harlem Renaissance, right? We don't get a chance to talk about the so-called black people in the North.
So let me ask you a question. You don't believe that that all people come right up out of the African gene?
Right.
Like the original people of the planet starts off with African people. You don't believe that? You don't?
No, I don't believe that. I don't believe it. And I'm going to tell you why.
So
I respect our tribal people here in North America, and there are a lot of tribes in North America that would say they don't believe it either.
So where do you think the rest of the people come from? Where do you think the white men come from? Where do white people come from?
Well, that's a good question. Where do they come from? I spoke to plenty of white people.
From a mixture of Native Americans, Indians, come from African mixture.
I think that's a question. I've actually spoke to quite a few white people about their origins, and it's an interesting answer that's different than what we're taught with science, right? And the Neanderthal argument, right? A lot of the white people I've spoken to, and I asked this question to them, what do you believe your origins are? A lot of them would say that I believe I come from a certain other planet. I had one person say I come from planet Vega. Another person said he believes the Nordic people, which he believes are his real white people, they come from the Nordic star. Everybody, see, we have this misconception because we don't talk to people. We just want to tell people stuff. That we all believe in the same thing just because science said it. You know, science also tells you to take the vaccine. Science also told you about COVID, right? But there's a lot of people out here, when you really talk to them, they don't believe in what these scientists are putting out. So they have their own origin stories, and what they say, they had their own astral travel with their ancestors, and they saw themselves coming from other planets. They saw themselves. As a matter of fact, I spoke to a Native American guy one time, And he said for his particular tribe from the Southwest, because we have to understand Southwest and the Western tribes, they're different than us Eastern Woodland people, right? But I asked him about his origins, what he believed as a Native American. He said, I know it's in our tribal stories that we came from behind the ice wall. Now, a lot of people say, oh, that's pseudo, you know, but there's a lot of phenomena on this planet that I do believe that they're unexplainable, right? Hence why, like I said earlier, that a lot of the Melanesians, the West Africans, some of them are having a ghost DNA. So is it possible that there are other humans that were on the planet that are extinct, at least they thought were extinct, and they're coming back to life? That's a possibility. It's a possibility. Anything's possible with science. Science is ever changing, right? But where we stand right now as Indigenous peoples is that we do take heed to what our ancestors tell us about where we're from. Mm-hmm. You know, I've even heard a sister tell me about her tribe. She said her tribe comes from the North Pole. Who would have told you that, right? But based on science, we'll say that's folklore, it's myths, and there's no possible way that people can come from the North Pole. So my dad, he definitely understands the journey that we're taking to restore our heritage here in America, and he definitely supports me in what I'm doing in trying to tell the story of the Americas. But my grandma, she'll make jokes about her hair. You know, her hair used to come way down to her back, and she'll make jokes about that. Her mother is actually where we would come with our also our Mohawk lineage, right? And it was a disconnect that happened between my great-grandmother and her side. And once I knew more about her side of the family, which we learned before she passed, she started to tell us about Port Washington. And my mom told me, she said, you know, I remember going to Port Washington. We used to go out there all the time. And when I actually showed my mother some of the stuff that I found, and I actually showed my great-grandma before she passed, I said, great-grandma, I found, you know, I found the Port Washington records, your brother. Her brother is William Dumpson. He was also a Harlem Globetrotter, right? So we have a lot of entertainers, a lot of singers and boxers and basketball players came out of my family, out of Port Washington, right? So it was like for me, I knew, but like I said, I didn't know how many people didn't know. But it wasn't a big deal to be an Indian. Like, people make it a big deal now. It's like, oh, yeah, you want to be Indian. But it's like, for a lot of us, it's just like, okay, that's what we are. You know, but we still fight for the injustices for black people, period. Because we know a lot of those black people are our people still, you know? So I don't know, like I said, I don't know why it's such a taboo. It's a phenomenon now to see darker skinned people. It's just like when people saw darker skinned people speaking Spanish. It was like, oh my God, they speak Spanish. We exist. We have the blood. You know, if somebody white can have the blood and be a chief of a tribe, I don't understand why there's such a big deal to be dark skinned, have the blood, and to be misclassified as a black American.
I know you are familiar and aware of Indians enslaving Africans.
Yes.
Talk to us about that. Were they a part of your family who owned slaves?
Not my family per se. And if you're going to talk about that history, then we're talking about the freedmen history. And the freedmen are a very particular set of people, families in this story. Because I know that a lot of people run around calling themselves freedmen, but they're not a part of that story. And the freedmen's, they all were not African people. A lot of the freedmen were people that were disbanded from their tribes or overtaken by the tribes. Hence why you'll have the Cherokee become an umbrella of these different tribes that were taken, right? The freedmen are not really seen as the true Cherokee people. But Cherokee tribe is also a made-up tribe, just as Choctaw, just as a lot of the Chickasaw. These tribes are amalgamations and umbrellas of tribes, right? I would say for my tribe, because I can speak for my people, we didn't have slaves. We didn't have that out here. Now, did some of our people become slaves? Yes, right? And that history is completely ignored. It's completely ignored about the thousands upon thousands of American Indians that were slaved on their own land and forced to pick cotton, forced to grow all types of crops for the European. No one talks about that side. So it's not every tribe. And the 5 civilized tribes, they're called civilized for a reason. You know, what does it mean to be civilized? Come on, it's colonization. These tribes are overtaken, they're overruled. The Cherokee language was made in the 1800s. There's nothing ancient about the Cherokee tribe, okay? So these are colonizers that were trying to breed in with the Indian, and then they will create what we call the freedmen out of the other American Indians that were displaced. Yes.
There's a term out there called the $5 Indian. What's that about? What is that?
A $5 Indian? That's basically someone...
Have you ever heard of it?
Yeah, that's someone who actually paid $5 to get on the Dawes Rolls Commission.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I understand in recent times, because people don't understand context,
right,
they use things out of place, right? But a $5 Indian is someone that was paying money to actually get on tribal rolls. Like, they wanted to become an Indian. A lot of those people would be considered white people today.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what it is. So is there anything else that you are not forgetting that you want to go ahead and spread out?
Yeah. So I want to say this, regardless of people's viewpoints of science, and we'll debate that all day. You got people who never endingly debate flat Earth. Okay, that's a never ending debate whether the Earth is round or flat. But I want people to understand is that our people lost a lot of wealth in this country in a short amount of time. A lot of people in the South, a lot of my Southern family and friends, when they went through these great migrations, this was also a major land theft that occurred, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of this land that was going to be stolen was also done by eminent domain, right? There's actually articles that talk about the 1 million+ black families that lost land in the South. Well, how do you get 1 million black families owning land if everybody was just enslaved? Then that means that there's certain parts of the story that's a little bit of a vague brush that's being painted. Some people were, some people were not, right? So when you're dealing with that, your wealth is in your land, period. There's no self-business you can start. I'm a business owner. Ain't no business you can start. Ain't no scholarship, research that you can do that's going to make you rich like owning land, right? And this is something that I don't hear a lot of our pro-black and Pan-African and Afrocentric scholars do, is to talk about what happened after Reconstruction era and how did these black families end up in the cities. And after they come in the cities, they're going to start to slowly lose the economic wealth. I can tell you right now, Brownsville, Brooklyn wasn't always Brownsville, Brooklyn like how we know it today. Brownsville, Brooklyn at one point was middle class. That was a middle class area. My grandma would tell you, she moved in her buildings when they were first built. They were all 2-parent middle class households that went to Brownsville. Look at Brownsville today and tell me what you see, right? We were systematically attacked, right? Between the drafts, between the war on drugs, between the crime bills, stop and frisk, all these things are going to play a factor in attacking the so-called black American in these cities. As they're being attacked, their economic wealth is going to dwindle and decline. Now that there's a great migration in reverse. A lot of people don't know that, but you should know there is a reverse of the Great Migration. So these families that are 2 to 3 generations in the South are now returning back to their homelands. But what's happening? They're not returning back to their land. They're returning back as renters again. This is a further economic drain that's occurring, right? And that was on purpose. So that's why I say with genealogy and why it's so important is because I've personally seen people do their genealogy and they find government issued land patents for 1,100 acres, 600 acres, 300 acres. And it's issued to them and their family forever, and they didn't know it because they're in Chicago. They don't know they got land in Alabama that they left. But like I said, there was a lot of reasons why our people had to migrate from the South, right? Once again, if you don't, your DNA is fine. Okay, do your DNA, right? But what tells your true story is your genealogy, all right? I don't want anyone to make an excuse of why they can't know who they are. I don't want someone else who don't know their story tell you that you don't know your story. Because I find that there are people who actually know who they are. Like Jabari, he knows who he is. But they would paint this picture that others can't do what they just did. No, you can. You can do it. And I've busted plenty of people in the lies that the records are burned. We never gonna know. We ain't never gonna. You gonna know. Because if sa.neter can tell you that he has an indigenous heritage, and I'm sure sa.neter, your Taino side, I'm pretty sure there's so much you can learn about the Tainos, right? They're here, right in Washington Heights. There's so many Tainos around us. You like jerk chicken? It's Taino. We can't engage in indigenous culture and then in the same breath say that to want to embrace it is a self-hate. I love indigenous people worldwide. Worldwide.
Let me ask you this last question.
Yes.
Are you a religious person?
I would say no, I'm not.
Do you believe in God?
I do believe in God. I do.
Who would you consider to be your God?
My God? I would say it's I would assume it's the God. Well, I know a lot of people.
Is it Jesus Christ?
No. Last I checked, he was the Son of God.
Yahweh?
No. I believe
what do
that.
y'all call God?
I believe I just believe he's the creator of all.
Okay. So you're not putting a name to it. You're just saying
I don't think there.
You know that there's something that exists outside of this, something that is more powerful.
Definitely. I definitely do believe that. And I don't put a gender on it either. I know a lot of people don't put a gender, if it's her, it's he. Mm-hmm. No, I do believe that there is a God. There is an all-seeing God. There is a higher power, a higher vibration that has made all these things possible. Even this interview right here, despite me and Jabari, we might not see things eye to eye, but I'm sure we can agree that there is a higher power that made all this possible. I hope so.